Okay.
I try my best to lip sync to that because I don't actually know if it's a part of the recording or not. I think it is. Anyway, hey, thanks for joining. Hey, everybody, I appreciate you tuning in, watching on YouTube or listening on the audio version of the podcast. I'm here with my newly acquired friend in higher education, Maria DeCabooter. She is the social media strategist for Northern Arizona University. How's the weather out there?
You know, it's actually a cold day in Flagstaff.
Cold day?
Yes, definitely sweaters.
Yeah, we have some close friends that teach at ASU, and they're like, yeah, it was 100 degrees here yesterday, no big deal. I'm like, I'll take it at this point. Get me outside. You know, right now it's like a balmy 50 degrees in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So, and you're doing well. You're staying safe, adjusting to self-isolation. All right.
Yes, doing okay. I have a 5-year-old, so that's a challenge. I think adjusting to work is a lot easier than adjusting to being at home with a child.
Oh my God, tell me about it. I mean, like at least with work, you can anticipate a lot. You know, I mean, we have the benefit of having like calendar notifications, right? But you know, young children, my daughter's 4, your daughter's 5, like there's no planning. There's no way to do that other than, okay, we're gonna have school time at 10 a.m. and then lunchtime at 11:30. Other than that, it's wild card.
Free for all.
Yep, free for all. Okay, so from 10 to 11:30, we're doing structured school stuff and lunch. And then from now until 5 o'clock, you can just destroy the house, and then we'll spend the 6 to 8 o'clock hour just cleaning it up. Pretty much, is that accurate?
I've never been more happy for that. Yes, but then also the Zoom virtual backgrounds. So, you know, I could pretend that my place looks very nice when there's like stuffed animals and who knows what's behind me.
Right. Yeah, I have no idea what your floor looks like at all. I mean, there could be, I don't know, what's your daughter into, like LOL surprise dolls or Paw Patrol?
Oh, Paw Patrol, Wild Kratts.
Wild Kratts. Good.
My Little Pony.
My Little Pony. Yeah, we got a lot of those. My daughter Amelia, she's into LOL surprise dolls, Super Mario Brothers, which awesome. I feel like I'm doing something right there. And then, yeah, that's basically all she plays right now. And they're just everywhere. Cool. Well, anyway, thanks for joining us. I could use on family stuff at any time, but I'm really interested in learning about you and your career and your work in higher education and social media and marketing. And generally, the first question I start off with everyone is, when was that moment you realized you had to be in marketing? Did you have that moment?
I never had that moment.
Oh, okay. So we're still waiting on it. Okay.
I wasn't even well, okay. No, from I think it was once I was about like 2 years into my position.
Okay.
And social media was really taking off, and we were connecting with students and like responding and like seeing the power of social media. Then I was like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
But going into this career, I did not think about that at all.
Oh, okay. So there was a bit of just kind of, you fell into it.
Yes. Yes, I would definitely say that.
What was your, so what'd you go to school for? What were you interested in?
I went to Rice University in Houston, Texas. I was a political science major.
Okay.
They're really strong in like engineering and like biosciences. And so they didn't really have a strong communication program, but I always like wanted to go in that field. So I did political science, but I took like every possible communications related type class. And after I graduated, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And so I went to law school. I have family members and background. So I was like, okay, I'll do this.
Yeah.
And again, I knew that I didn't want to practice like private practice, but I wanted to like work in the communication side.
Sure.
But then I graduated in 2010 and there were no jobs out there.
Right. Yeah. Because
Right.
we were
So,
just coming off of the starting the economic recovery, basically.
yeah. So in May 2010, up until November, I applied for like every legal type job in the courtrooms, like
Mhm.
paralegals. I heard nothing at all from May till November. And then when
Wow.
I got a job, it was for Girl Scouts of Southern Arizona, and they were
Mhm.
hiring for a communications position. And so I was able to translate some of my like law skills and did communications and like contracts, board governance, and
Yeah.
that type of stuff. And then I realized I really liked doing communications and the storytelling side of it and connecting with our audiences. And the position that I'm in now opened up at Northern Arizona University. It was originally a public affairs specialist, and this
Mhm.
was about 7-8 years ago. And so they were looking for someone to grow their social media in addition to
Okay.
doing regular PR type of stuff. And so I applied and I got it, and which I was surprised because I was like, okay.
Mhm.
And I've been there ever since.
Wow, that's awesome. So you really got in on the ground floor of their social media marketing, and you got to build that up.
Yes.
What were some of the strategies you took to foster a good social channel or set of social channels?
Right. I think it was just like all about connecting and setting measurable goals. I think
Mhm.
a lot of people, when they jump in, they're just like all about can we get more followers? Like, how do we grow?
Right.
Rather than taking it like day by day. Like when I started out, um, we just started Instagram and we had less than 100 followers. And so it's been from like 100 and we're at 50,000 now. But like, I remember
Mhm.
when like, just like week to week, it'd be like, oh, we have like 10 more people and that was a small victory.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's celebrating the small victories on the way and then
Right.
just making sure you're doing the little things. Like, are you like reaching out? Are you commenting? Are you
Mhm.
trying to go above and beyond?
Yeah, the little details make a huge difference, even if it's like, on the social channels that myself and my colleague operate. I make it a point to look at our peer, like our co-departments social media, and occasionally like and make comments and try to create a dialogue, even if it's with another department on campus that's unrelated to business. And even with the students, they use a hashtag called Pitt Business Famous. So like anytime a student's featured on our social media, they're like, oh, they're Pitt Business Famous. And that's pretty cool. And we wouldn't have gotten to that point if we didn't engage with them in a meaningful and personable way.
And I think right now, my favorite new thing on Instagram story,
Yeah.
that you can now respond back through GIFs and GIF stickers. And so
Mhm.
once we saw that, we're like, oh, yes. And so now, like, especially when we utilize interns to like help monitor and respond to things, like we don't
Yeah.
have to worry about them saying anything like wrong because we're like, okay, just go to our GIFs, search like GIF stickers, use the congrats like balloons, and
Mhm.
you still get that touch. And then it shows that like, hey, we're up to speed, with our digital content.
Right. Yeah, and you having that law background, I feel like a lot of that, if not all of it, is very detail centric. Not only detail, but strategy centered. So you combine those two things together, and you've really got the makings of a good operator for social media and marketing in general, for that matter. I've actually known a lot of. I presume you have your JD.
I do.
Yeah, so I've actually known a lot of JDs that go into marketing. More specifically, they go into sports marketing. That seems to be like a natural kind of career choice from that point.
Yeah, and I think like it has like two sides. So like sometimes people are like, okay, we need to get this up. And you'll be like, we do need to get it up, but do we have all the details up? Do we have something that we could link back to? Because people are going to ask all these questions and we can't get this out unless we can answer and anticipate. So sometimes in the room, I'm like, okay, well, you need to have the social media people at the room with you so they can anticipate the reaction you're going to get.
And so I omitted a detail by accident, and I would say it's that necessity for managing quality. Like you got the details, you've got the ops side, the strategy side, and then you have a high level of qualitative, expectation. And when you got those things together, then you can really flourish. So I feel like there's a delay. I think there's a delay on this call. Is there a little one?
A little bit.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, so you've been at your university for a while, and you've got all these really unique experiences. I'm interested in how you're telling stories. Like, what's one of the best stories you've ever told?
Oh, that's such a hard one. Okay, well, I would say I'm going to go with most interesting, and then maybe I'll think about the best story.
Okay. Sometimes they're both.
The most interesting story, I think, was like, this guy was a freshman, he was like really techie, and he invented a Seinfeld door sensor. So you would open the door and it did the Kramer walk sound. And so he
nice.
Blew up. He was on he went viral. He was on talk show things, and we reached out to him, and he's like, "You think this is cool?" And so we reenacted it, but then we also incorporated the video clips. And so I think that was really interesting because we don't get to feature a lot of guys on our social media because they're not as willing to be on it and talk to us.
Right.
And then also it was involving the academic side and how he did I don't even know how he made the door sensor,
right.
and the coding side. And so we were able to use that and make it really approachable to a large audience.
It's interesting that you're finding that males aren't as willing to cooperate on the social media side. I found that as well. I'm doing a project now where it's called Pit Business Backstory, and I'm telling the stories of our seniors stretching all the way back to their senior year of high school when they're making their college decisions. And most of them are women, which is fantastic. I love that. And they all have great stories to tell. And what's interesting is when I send the survey to the female participants and the male participants, it's always the female participants that have more detail. They've got better photos, but they also have stronger stories. And then, so I would look at Maria's story, right? I'm like, oh man, this is great. I'm going to be able to develop, print graphics, static graphics, motion graphics, video, all of this stuff. And then I look at James and I'm like, he didn't do anything. He didn't do much of anything. I'm going to have to really kind of interview this kid and pull out as many of these details as possible. So ladies out there, thank you for providing all that detail. Makes our jobs easier.
I agree too, especially we do a lot of student takeovers on our Instagram story, and the girls generally aesthetically, it's amazing. And I'm like, wow, everyone could take over. But then for some of the guys, even though you tell them and then you instruct them, the question sticker is still on their face. And you're like, oh, can you please move it down? Or is it going to be like that for every single post?
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. Hopefully we can, you just have to moderate them and curate their content. You might as well, if you could be like a disembodied spirit that floats over their shoulder as they're doing a takeover, I think that, and control their hands, I think that's the best possible solution here. Yeah, if you come up with a better solution, please share it, because Yeah, it can be like, well, I mean, it's torture at times. So, okay, so that was the most interesting. So what was the best one?
Okay. The best, it's not an actual piece of content, but it's a campaign series.
Oh, great. I love this. Okay.
Okay. So we were really like, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, really looking to showcase students and like why, like just like about them and looking for the best way to do it. So it was kind of like our version. It started out as our version of Snapchat takeovers because we like the authentic feel that we were getting on Snapchat, because they would post way more than like Instagram because we were just so nervous about taking it over. So we framed it as my life in 5 pictures. And so we asked people to choose 5 pictures and then write a few sentences about what those pictures meant to them. And so it started off okay. We made it into an Instagram feature and a blog. But then once the question sticker came out, it really turned around. So after all the 5 pictures they send in, we like Instify it. So we add like gifts, make it fun. And then it follows up with a question sticker and says like, it's a ask me anything. So then the student takes over and only answers questions they get that day. So it's been really nice to feature like a wide variety. So we had people like a first-gen student going on, and then we'd work with like marketing communications to get it out to incoming first-gen students. And so they could watch, and really allowing people to tell stories that wouldn't have that big platform to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And then over summer, it's been really great to connect with the incoming class because we'll do a promo for it. And then we'll have about like 150 new coming people fill out our form, and then we'll have content for over summer and then going into fall too.
That's great. Again, that speaks to the detail in the operations and your strategy. I love that. I'm going to steal it.
It's called repurposing and getting ideas.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's it. I'm inspired to repurpose it. Yeah. You know what though? Like I love open-ended stuff like that, especially with the questions, because you let your army work for you. You know, you let your student force work for you, and they at times can tell you their story better than you ever could. Be it a concise version of it or a long-winded version of it. They typically know exactly the right emotional notes to hit. And that's one thing I really love about, you know, the students that I work with. They all have a unique story to not only how they got to where they are, but where they want to go. So you're mostly marketing. So you market, rather you communicate to current students, prospective students, alumni. How did the alumni fit into your planning, if at all?
Alumni, we kind of put in the same category as parents, and really cater our Facebook audience to them. And so incorporating like live streams where they can connect with people on campus or talking to our experts. So they like to like the educational content more, and being able to see like, oh, I had that professor, what's he doing now? And oh, like those lasting connections.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as soon as they graduate, well, I don't know. Are you finding that you're getting your most traction or most engagement on Instagram or Facebook?
Instagram, by far.
Instagram. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's where we're putting, I mean, I feel like we put a lot of time into Instagram, but not enough. And part of my challenge there is you, in your vocation, in your job, you represent the whole university. I only represent an aspect of it, one college. And it just so happens to be the college that has like the least amount of visual intrigue, right? Like, oh, let's take a photo of this student sitting in front of a computer with finance software. Hey, I love my finance people, but like that doesn't necessarily make for a good photo. Unlike engineering or the creative arts or even athletics and stuff like that. So our Instagram I would love to, do something really creative with that content, but it doesn't warrant that. Out of curiosity, what are some things that you've wanted to do on the different platforms that were maybe a bit out of reach, or maybe they're too advanced, or they're, before their time, so to speak, with the content you manage, rather? It was a really convoluted way to ask that question. I apologize.
I'm not sure I completely understand it, but I think way back when, I was just like, okay, we need to do lives. And
perfect.
People will be like, they're like, oh yeah, that's cool. But then it wouldn't happen because they don't understand how time consuming and you have to prep to do a live stream. And then, so I don't think we were using it in ways that were beneficial to us.
Yeah.
Even though it was so easy and so accessible until really, COVID hit, and then they're like, oh, we have to get everything virtual. And I'd be like, I've been telling you this for so long. Okay,
yes. See, you understood my question completely, because I wanted, one of the things that I'm observing, and so I was faculty side for the past decade, and now I'm staff side at a different university, and I'm loving it. I'm having a great time, but I'm trying to understand the culture of social media, or even just higher ed marketing in general, from your point of view, from others. And I'm really interested in who are the innovators in our industry on the practical level, not the theory people or the philosophy people or even the consultants, but who are the people that are on the staff side that are doing the innovative things? Where's the forward thinking at? And I've been through all the conversations that I've had with people, I've been able to pick up on this and this and this. And I also feel that the people that are on the staff side, they're applying the technology in the most creative and useful ways. So for me, it stands to reason that they would also be forward thinking, because they have to continually evolve their content. Right. So to your point with the live streams, I share your frustration there, because you saw it coming, no one saw value in it, and now it's one of those things where we have to do it. And I hope you rubbed it in everyone's faces.
Maybe just a little, this is why you need to practice your live streams and check your equipment and check your Wi-Fi.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the other thing. I do think that there are forward-thinking practitioners such as yourself, and I love having conversations with them. But I'm also interested in, where is the pride in the work that we're doing? I mean, yes, on that level of hey, I did good work today, or that post got 1,000 likes. That's quick access. That kind of hits immediately, but who inspires you? Whose work are you looking at to inspire you?
Oh gosh, there's so many great people out there. I think my favorites, I'd have to go with Colorado State University and University of Michigan. They've just been so on their digital game for so long, and understand the importance of getting on the channels, especially incorporating with new gifts and all of that. And I think you were talking about the staff side, and I think anyone who works with prospective students, they're going to be the most forward thinkers, because you have to think like them. It's no, they're not going to look at a banner, they're going to be looking at their social media. And so even it's in times of we're thinking about campus news, but it's are you making it friendly for students to access? How are we going to frame it in ways that they need to know? Right.
Yeah, the user experience, it seems to shift. Even the UX design shifts every single year. And a lot of that, I feel has to do with the design of the social media applications that we're using. So in a sense, we're kind of piggybacking on all the research that Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, they're doing to make their interfaces as clean and as accessible as possible. And then we have to work around those parameters. So yeah, and you know, Colorado State, Michigan, like they're on everyone's list, right? Are there any folks, any accounts that are not higher ed affiliated that inspire you?
Of course, I can't name them like now that I think of them, but I think I just follow like a wide variety. So even like on health and fitness videos, like there's ones that have like the side by side. So you have like people working out and they have like the countdown and then like font on the bottom. So it's just always like looking at ways like, oh, you know, that's cool. Like visually, like we can translate that into something we're doing.
Right. Yes. So I love that transitional sort of application. And I'm finding lately that, you know, I have a Twitter account that's dedicated to my higher ed people, faculty, staff, et cetera. And then I have another account where I'm just like observing all of the different types of accounts that are out there. And I'm trying to take the best of what I see and apply it to my context in business. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, we can't be snarky like Arby's or Wendy's can, right? But, you know, have you seen the stuff that Arby's does with the cardboard? Right? Like, clearly an awesome graphic designer doing that. But nevertheless, like, you know, how far can you take an idea before it is just like a flat out copy, right? So you know, another thing, just to switch gears real quick, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. Like, I feel, so when I was faculty side, there was an effort to like, you always need to be creating. You always must be producing. You have to get into shows. You have to get your work published. You have to get your papers published. You have to get grants, you know, all of these things. And now that I'm on the staff side of things, I don't feel that pressure, obviously, at all, except from myself. So when I see Higher Ed Web, Social Fresh, you know, EduWeb, I want to apply to those things. And those are the folks that are really resonating with me right now, the people that want to do that. Have you ever applied to speak at a conference or anything like that?
You know, not until last year. And I think that's where kind of you're talking about the faculty side. It's different because you're so like doctrinated. You must do this.
Yes.
And on the staff side, sometimes it's just like, there is no time, especially
right. That's a good point.
If you have a small team. And so it's just like, okay, I need to do this. I don't have any time to do any like external things that aren't relevant to what I'm doing right now.
Right.
But I spoke at the Social Media Strategies Higher Ed Summit.
Okay.
Last October in New York. And then I've applied to kind of the similar ones you mentioned. And I think for me, like, obviously, like, I want to do it for myself too, but now I use it as a point to like showcase like why social media is so important and show our leadership like, hey, we got chosen to speak at this because we're doing this. And then all of a sudden they like are like, oh, wow. And they see it in a different way. So then they want us to get ourselves out there.
Thank you. Thank you. That's exactly what I was looking for. I'm trying to find some kinship with folks that feel that way because, you know, I recognize and acknowledge and understand that, you know, social media marketing is you're always on, right? And especially if you want to do a great job at it. And from my point of view, like if you're always on and you want to do a great job at it, like there's got to be more to it than that. Like, don't just do it because, yeah, it's your job. Like, okay, fine. You need more skin in the game. You need more of an investment. So, you know, I've been encouraging my colleagues and my team to like, let's go talk at a conference. Let's validate, even if it's self-validation, let's validate what we do because of how important it is. And if others happen to recognize that, great. If they don't, that's fine too, because ultimately, you know, by doing so, we validated our work with you, Maria. We validated it with you, Michelle, or whomever. And I think that there's considerable value in having that kind of pride with your work. And ultimately, it makes your work better because other people outside of your university are validating it in a really unique way. And the same applies for competitions. Have you guys submitted your work for competitions at all, be it design or social media or communications?
We have. Last year, we got the PR Daily Reagan Communications Best Use of Instagram Stories.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
So there you go. Now, how did that make your team feel? Like, was that just like kind of like, oh, that's neat? Or
No, it was really a shock. I mean, like, we just kind of put it out there because it's like, we're like, hey, we did all these gifts, and like, we were like one of the first universities in Arizona to do so. So if like ASU and U of A, like they're big names, but we like were ahead of them in this one area.
Right.
And so it was just it was definitely a shock. And then I was like, oh, this is nice. Like, see, like, what we're doing like makes a difference. People notice it, even though sometimes at our own institutions is just so busy to acknowledge it. Like, you're like, okay, yay. And then every day it's like, okay, what now? What next?
Right. Right. Exactly. Well, I'm glad that you guys find value in it, and you're actually like putting yourselves out there, because the other aspect to that is, and I had this conversation with a previous person on the podcast, was like, I find competitive opportunities as a means of constructive criticism. So for example, I submitted a microsite to GDUSA magazine, which is Graphic Design USA, which is one of the dominant industry publications for the graphic design field. And like, if we get in, great. If we don't, that's fine too. But at least now that I see what wins, now I know what I can measure my work against. Because, this idea of growing in your position, I think, is really important to me. There are a lot of jobs in higher ed where you get hired and then you could be there for 30 years and that's it. Where are your end goals? Do you always want to be the social media strategist, or what do you want to do? And that's a question that wasn't rhetorical. Where do you want to go?
Right now, I'm really happy with where I am right now, because I think
diplomatic answer.
There's so much room to get additional buy-in and resources for our team, and to like do a lot of cool stuff, like get a drone.
Yes, now we're talking.
Yeah, but no, I just hope that let's say like 10 years from now, I'm still like just sharing stories and using whatever is out there to communicate with a younger population. Cool. That's the I like that demographic.
Yeah. Well handled. That's the there was some good wordsmithing there. Anyway, I'm teasing you. No, that's good. I mean, ultimately, like, I think most of us are in this particular aspect are full-blown storytellers, and so long as we get to continue doing that in whatever position, I think that kind of scratches the itch, right? And ultimately, storytelling is creating, and if we're always creating something, then I think there's a certain level of satisfaction to be had there. So we're kind of wrapping up on the end, and I wanted to get your thoughts on advice for marketing students, creative professional or creative students, be they in marketing, communications, design. What's your advice for them as they enter an industry, either looking for a full-time job or an internship, entering an economy, that can't necessarily support them right now? What would you recommend?
Ooh, it's very hard, but I would say, just utilize your network, like reach out to those professors, like share, like, this is what you want to do. And I think the more connections you have, the more people are willing to, ask around and for help and to help you, because everyone wants you to succeed. And it might be hard. You might have to take jobs you don't want to do, or you didn't think you would go to college for, but just take those, because everything you can get is just a learning opportunity, even though you don't see it at the time. I think if you go about and have that type of mindset where it's okay, like, it's not what I expected, but I'm still going to make the best of it every single day, then that's when you're going to still be successful when things calm down and you do find that job, and then you're going to remember all those who helped you along the way and have great resources to teach people coming up.
So there's definitely an aspect of giving back there. No doubt. Cool. Okay. So if folks were interested in learning more about you and the work that you do, how could they find you? How can they reach out?
You can email me, maria.decabooter, DECABOOTER @nau.edu. You can also search for me on LinkedIn, and on Instagram, I am DeCabooter. It's not fancy. It's all about my kid because I don't have time to print any books. So if I put it up on Instagram, it's my memory book and I can go through and show it to her. Yep.
That's really what Instagram is for. Yeah. Well, this was great, Maria. I really appreciate your time, and keep up the good work out there, and hopefully we'll check in with you again soon, and look forward to learning from you and hopefully stealing some of your ideas.
Adapting.
Yes, being inspired. Yes.
Thanks, RJ.
All right.